A massive crowd, over 110,000, a searingly hot day, track temperature 44 degrees. Michael Schumacher, World Championship favourite on pole, and that bottleneck first corner looming. Those are the ingredients for the Canadian Grand Prix with Mark Blundell and Murray Walker.
And the temperature here in the commentary box is just as tense as it is all the way around the circuit. This is very much the calm, the lull before the storm. Michael Schumacher sitting there for the first time this year in pole position in front of his chief opposition, Mika Häkkinen. And there is the Finn who pulled one of those magnificent last-minute laps out of the bag yesterday and only missed pole position by 29/100ths of a second. But that was enough to put Michael Schumacher a car's length ahead of him, which could make all the difference in this race. As ever, it's going to be the run down to the start that's going to be critical. Last year, you've seen the pictures already, Alexander Wurz in the Benetton doing a terrific barrel roll, after which he was perfectly all right. But then Ralf Schumacher went off and took a lot of people with him. The safety car was out 3 times last year. Let's hope it is not out this year. But Mark Blundell, what will be going through the minds of the drivers as they sit just for a few moments before the start of this race? 69 laps is going to last for the thick end of an hour and 3/4.
Well, it's just going to be a case of concentration, Murray, at this point. They're just getting all the thoughts together. And, of course, if you've just mentioned turn 1 is going to be the big issue. They're all thinking about how they're going to get through their first and who's going to come out the other end clean.
One thing that we might have a little problem with here that's not struck us before is that due to this enormous heat, the fuel rigs, of course, are taking an enormous amount of temperature, and the nozzles are expanding. One of the mechanics was saying he envisaged it might be quite difficult to get the fuel nozzle into the receptacle, into the fuel tank. We've got some absolutely unique problems here. The blankets are out over the engines. The engines themselves, in the case of Ferrari, McLaren, in particular, are the new micro engines, which are very much smaller. They run very much smaller radiators, and they run at much higher temperatures anyway. Now, the track temperature is actually, to use Jim Rosenthal's expression, plummeted in the last couple of minutes. It's gone down from 44 degrees to a mere 42 degrees. But that is still going to mean that those engines are going to be running very, very hot indeed. And another unique problem here at Montreal at any time is the brakes. You've heard from Tony Jardine about them, but in this searing heat, they're going to be taking a terrible pounding. Only 9 cars finished the race last year. 22 are starting this year. Everybody qualified all right. Marc Genet, the Spaniard in the Minardi, was the last one to qualify in terms of time. So all 22 are in, but if half of them finish this race, I will be mighty surprised. Now, the question is going to be, as ever, as you look at this magnificent vista, this big baking crowd who've been putting the sun oil on all around me all morning, and the St. Lawrence Seaway shimmering there. The big question is going to be, can Mika Häkkinen, from second on the grid, he's on the left-hand side as you look at the front of it now, get past Michael Schumacher before that first turn? I have to say, I very much doubt it. The Ferraris were not so good at starting at the beginning of this season, but they've been going through a concentrated test program at Fiorano, which is where the Ferrari test track is, to perfect their starting procedures. They've rewritten the software for the engines to help that. And that is Jacques Villeneuve, the hero of Canada, way down in 16th position. He was only 20th fastest in the warm-up this morning. And incidentally, in the warm-up this morning, David Coulthard, who reckons that this is his circuit more than Mika Häkkinen, was fastest. But the great surprise was that Rubens Barrichello, that you're looking at in the Stewart, was second fastest, and his teammate Johnny Herbert was third fastest in the second Stewart. They've really come good here in Canada, and they could be the surprise of the race. This is not the start, this is the parade lap, during which, Mark, they will be...
Well, they're going to just take things easy around here on the parade lap, nothing silly. Obviously, they're going to get their cars ready for the start itself. but they want to maintain their tyres, their temperatures, get the pressures correct, and just make sure they get to that starting grid in as good an order as possible. The thing what's interesting, Murray, is the lap there, what Schumacher did for pole, a 19.298, 1 minute 19.298. That actually converts to them covering that track at 55.75 meters per second. Now, if Schumacher can keep that advantage during the race of only 29 thousandths second of a difference to Häkkinen, he's going to leave him by 1.6 meters a second every lap.
Mark, you're better on the anorak stuff than I am. That's terrific. Now, the pole position time, Michael Schumacher, was just a second slower than David Coulthard's pole position time. We're riding with Damon Hill, incidentally, and it just about equaled the lap record. You can only make a lap record in a race, not in qualifying. So they're coming down towards turn 10, which is approached at some 180 miles an hour in race conditions. They're coming to it now. And they come down from about 180 miles an hour to 50 miles an hour, 5-0. A lot of people been going off there. We had a Formula Ford race earlier today, and that gravel trap in the foreground was littered with cars. This is Jean Alesi in the Sauber, and he's very, very happy with the car. It's going a lot better this year than it did last year. And Alesi is a previous winner here. We've got Damon Hill as a past winner here, Michael Schumacher 3 times a winner here, and Jean Alesi, who won his one and only race for Ferrari, incidentally, here at Montreal in 1995. 69 lap race, that's 190 miles, and very, very hot, demanding miles they are going to be. Towards the back of the grid, Marc Genet, Luca Bader, the 2 Minardis, then the 2 Arrows of De La Rosa and Takagi. Sadly for them, the BARs have not been going at all well here. They don't know what the problem is. They say they know that when Benetton do well, they do badly, and when the opposite conditions apply, they'll be able to sort themselves out. But there we go. Damon Hill then coming up into that 14th position on the grid with Zanardi's Williams in front of him. And to the left you see Ralf Schumacher's car. As usual, watch the lights. Michael Schumacher to the right, Mika Häkkinen to the left. Behind Michael Schumacher's Ferrari is Eddie Irvine's Ferrari. Behind Mika Häkkinen's McLaren is David Coulthard's McLaren. The yellow car behind Coulthard is Heinz-Harald Frentzen. And Rubens Barrichello is in the white Stewart. And in Canada, it is... Go! Michael Schumacher moves across, cuts across. Häkkinen, Eddie Irvine trying to go up the inside, failing to do so. Are they all going to get around? There's one! That's it, it's a Prost again. So, and it looks to me, it's Jarno Trulli. Jarno Trulli has gone off, but hopefully they'll be able to keep the race going. Jarno Trulli was involved last year when his car rode up onto the back of Wirtz's car, and he's out of it already. You're looking through the on-car camera here. So Jarno Trulli out of the race, but it looks to me as though the track is clear, and that's the important thing. And it was Jean Alesi who was involved, and he was also involved. So, like last year, so Schumacher leads, is where he wants to be in the Ferrari. Clear track in front of him. Mika Häkkinen behind him in second place. Eddie Irvine is third. Then it's Fisichella who's got ahead of David Coulthard. Down to 5th position goes the McLaren, who attacks at the hairpin. But Fisichella moves across. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen is behind Coulthard, coming through to complete lap 1 out of 69. More or less what we expected. Mika Häkkinen wasn't able to get the jump on Michael Schumacher.
Yeah, just as we thought, Murray, there'd be some turmoil in turn 1. And actually, I think what happened is Alesi got a very good start and actually got Wiley Jordan in front of him, but he just got connected there with Trulli, and the pair of them are out. That's a great disappointment to the Prost team.
Well, here's the replay. You see, there is Trulli going off. He will say he was pushed off by somebody, and the wheel goes bouncing through the gravel trap. But fortunately, as I said, the track is completely clear. Now, you see Trulli, there he is, going across the grass, over the curb.
Well, he already lost it, Murray. Before he got to turn 1, he's already sideways and actually slid into the car in the middle of the pack. Safety car's out, Murray.
And just as it was last year, and Alex Wirtz tours into the pits And there are the Stewart mechanics. So it looks to me as though it was Johnny Herbert who was collected, because Trulli, Wurz and Herbert were respectively 9th, 10th and 11th on the grid. And, but it may have been Rubens Barrichello. He was ahead of Johnny Herbert on the grid, and Barrichello is actually in the pits as I talk to you. Now, let's have a look. Well, there's Barrichello coming through. And yes, it is Rubens Barrichello who is hit by Trulli, charging up the inside. Jarno Trulli, the Italian in the broken pros there, charging up from 9th position, collecting Rubens Barrichello, who was 5th on the grid. Now we're with Alesi at the present moment. He goes past the Jordan, an excellent start. There is Rubens Barrichello on the left. Alesi coming through and trying to get past David Coulthard. A super start for Alesi. He's going to be very, very sick indeed about this. Off the track, on the grass, back onto the track again. And there is the broken Stewart of Rubens Barrichello. Now, the safety car stays out. The system for the safety car, as you continue to watch this replay, you see how tight it is. Very, very difficult, Mark.
Very difficult indeed, but I actually feel there may have been a little bit of a move between Trulli and the Benetton there. They touched.
Green flag, race is on. Schumacher leads, Häkkinen, Eddie Irvine is 3rd, Fisichella is 4th, David Coulthard is 5th, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen is 6th ahead of Johnny Herbert. And Rubens Barrichello is out of the race. Alex Wurz is out of the race. Jarno Trulli and Alesi are out of the race. So already from 22 starters on lap 3, which is we're on now, we are down to 18 competitors as a result of that mayhem at the start, with Trulli collecting Barrichello, Wurz coming in, and Alexander Wurz retiring in the pits. So you're watching now Fisichella pursued by David Coulthard. Now David's not going to be at all happy about this, Mark. He was hoping to win this race from 4th on the grid in tall order, but he's already lost a place to Fisichella.
Yeah, he won't be happy about that. He's normally very good in the starts. One place where they're going to go and get this advantage for the McLaren guys is down this straight in particular, Murray. All weekend long they've been running about 10 to 12 k's quicker, and he's lining the guy up now. He's going to slide by. Watch.
On the left, David Coulthard comes up and inside Fisichella, absolutely right, Mark. Beautiful forecast. David Coulthard uses the superior power of the Mercedes-Benz V10 engine over the Supertech in Fisichella's car. And we're now on lap 4 out of 69. Michael Schumacher is making them... Oh, and off goes Zonta. That's Ricardo Zonta in the BAR. He was in 15th position, so that's yet another retirement. And that makes 5 already. Rubens Barrichello out, Wurz out, Alesi out, Trulli out, Zonta out. And this is what happened. Barrichello managed to get going again after the pit stop. There is Zonta hitting the wall on the exit to turn 13, which is the last corner on the track. Wow, lap 4, 65 to go. It's a long, long way. Michael Schumacher, as I said, is making the most of the fact that he's got a clear track ahead of him. And he is now 1.4 seconds ahead of Mika Häkkinen, with Eddie Irvine 3.3 seconds behind him. David Coulthard up into 4th place ahead of Fisichella and Frentzen. Now, the question is strategy. What sort of a strategy? And that is...
As Alex Zanardi. This guy has some unbelievably bad luck. He's already out of this race. No, it looks like he might get going again. I truly hope so.
Well, Zanardi was actually in 8th position, which is higher than he's been in any race at all this year, I think. And you can see Zonta's car. It's in a dangerous position, that car. The safety car's coming out again. This is a replay of 1998. The safety car was out 3 times last year. Very sensible. I'm sure that Charlie Whiting, who is the race director, has decided that they've got to get Zonta's car away from where it is now, because it is right on the exit to turn 13. They don't come out of it all that quickly. about 70 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour as they come out of the right angle. But that car is right at the end of the patch of concrete which runs alongside the track and onto which the cars go. And if somebody collected Zonta's BAR, it would be very nasty indeed. So here, Schumacher, Häkkinen, Irvine. It's a replay of David Coulthard pursuing Mark Blundell's forecast and going up to take 4th position in the Canadian Grand Prix. We are now on lap 5. Well, you're used to this, of course, Mark. Yellow flag, safety cars in America. It's par for the course there.
It is indeed, and this is a little bit unusual, but I must admit this is going to be a great frustration to the drivers. They get into a rhythm and all of a sudden the flags are out. They've got to back off and they're going to have to start all over again.
I'll tell you something else, Mark. I'm watching the temperature here. The race started 46 degrees track temperature, 44 degrees. It's now gone up to 46 degrees. It was bad enough when it started. It's even worse now.
It's going to be a tough race, Murray. This is one of those tracks which is extremely hard on the cars. Reliability is going to be a big issue. And as we heard James Allen speak about earlier, McLaren, ever the committed team as they are, second to none. They flew a guy out from England on a light aircraft. Got him to Toronto, then hired a private jet, dropped him off at the track 4 o'clock this morning, and those guys were in fitting new parts to the car.
And they may well pay off because those bits were brake bits and the brakes take a terrific pounding here. Sure enough, they are retrieving Zonta's car with the tractor lift unit there to get it off the racing line. They would be coming off the concrete to the left. You can see that green patch, it's actually concrete. They would be coming out with the noses of their cars under the rear wing of Zonta's stationary BAR if they'd left it there. So more than sensible to have removed it. Yet another replay of the start. And you see Trulli losing his car, going into the Stewart, wheel off the Prost, the blue Prost, and down there Jean Alesi goes off over the curb. I feel very sorry for Jean Alesi, because he's getting towards the end of his career. That's Trulli, Alesi just going out of picture. And he's with one of the teams which is not a top team, the Sauber. And he got that car absolutely right. He was very, very happy with it. When Jean Alesi is up, he's up. And when he's down, he's very down. Well, he was up yesterday. And really optimistic about his chances in the race. Yeah,
actually, I feel sorry for Rubens Barrichello as well.
Jean.
Great disappointment for him. I mean, he was just in the corner there, turn 1, and just got taken out by Jarno Trulli. The new Stewart 4 team going to be a little bit unhappy on losing the front runner.
Absolutely, yes. In case you don't know, those of you who are watching, the Stewart Grand Prix team went through a very dramatic situation this week here in Montreal when the announcement was made. But Jackie Stewart and his son Paul, who are chairman and deputy chairman, have been bought out by the Ford Motor Company, which is a good thing in many ways because yet again it demonstrates how the manufacturers, the big manufacturers, as Jean Alesi, who in the Sauber team talks to Alain Prost of the Prost team, it's an indication that the top manufacturers are getting very involved with Formula One. It's a very, very expensive sport and there's a lot of money there. So hopefully it's going to be even better. We're on lap 6 now. The safety car is still out. Michael Schumacher, who had worked so hard to build up a gap of 1.5 seconds over Mika Häkkinen, has seen that all disappear out of the window. And Eddie Irvine closes up on Häkkinen. So we're going to get this situation where it's go again.
It's going to be go again. But first of all, I think Alesi just needed to vent a little bit of his anger off there at Alain Prost. Obviously, in his best French lingo, he was trying to find out what Trulli was up to.
Mark, it's going to be a rolling start, and this temperature is now 47 degrees. It's continuing to go up. Now they're not getting air through the radiators. Is it going to make? It's going to make it worse.
It is going to make it worse, and they're all bunched up together, so there's a lot of still air. And actually, we know that Rubens Barrichello, who got pushed out in that start, is actually back on the track again, but a lap down.
It's not my fault. Jarno Trulli, pretty short race for him. Very much a coming man. I'm sorry to laugh. It's not funny actually. Jarno Trulli, very much a coming man. I bet he's a hot man, because you've heard about the drivers from Tony Jardine in underwear and long-sleeved underwear, long-legged pants.
The safety car is actually going to come in this lap, Murray.
Right, safety car in at the end of this lap, and we're currently on lap 769, so the race is restarting for the second time. The safety car out twice in the first 5 laps, and I have not seen that before. Oliver Gavin is driving the safety car, the man who drives for the European aviation team in Formula 3000 and does it very well indeed. When he's not doing that, he drives the Mercedes-Benz safety car for the FIA, the governing body of the sport. And there was a time last year when I thought he'd probably done more laps in the Mercedes than most of the Formula 1 drivers. So Oliver is going to be turning that steering wheel and coming, well, he won't be turning the steering wheel because he goes straight on when he gets to the pit lane. It's the shortest pit lane in Formula 1 here in Canada. And the race is about to restart from a rolling start. Watch the Mercedes. Into the pit lane. Schumacher goes, Häkkinen goes, Irvine goes, Coulthard goes, Fisichella goes. There's the patch where the BAR was. That is Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the yellow car. Tucked up behind him is Johnny Herbert in the Stewart and going for it. And in 8th place is Ralf Schumacher. And look at Johnny Herbert. Now, Johnny Herbert has got a reputation to regain in 1999 because he's been very much number 2 to Rubens Barrichello, who is out of the race. And the Ford Empire is resting on Johnny Herbert's shoulders at the moment. He's a little chap, but he's got a lot of strength and a lot of determination.
He's got that Union Jack on the top of his helmet, and he's going to make sure that he flies the flag today. He's got the bit between his teeth. Barrichello's actually in the race still, Murray. He's only a lap down, but I just saw him scrapping at the back of the grid there with Zanardi. Zanardi's back on track and trying to get positions.
Right, thanks for that, Mark. Yes, you've spotted the fact that he's rejoined. I hadn't, but it means that Zonta is out, of course. We've seen his car removed. Wurtz is out. Lacey is out. We've seen him talking to Alain Prost. And Jarno Trulli is out. So we're looking down at the hairpin. You see David Coulthard being pursued by Fisichella's car as now Michael Schumacher, Mika Häkkinen, Eddie Irvine, David Coulthard. We've got 2 Ferraris, 1st and 3rd, 2 McLarens, 2nd and 4th, and Eddie Irvine is starting to give... So Coulthard is starting to get Eddie Irvine a hard time.
Yeah, Coulthard, as I said, they've got that advantage in straight line speed. McLaren have been working all weekend to maintain that advantage. They don't worry too much about carrying downforce. They're not worried about getting through the corner. They know they're going to get on the gas, and they know they're going to catch up to the guy in front. And it's also a bonus for them when it comes up to back markers. They're going to pass the back markers much easier.
Yeah, but he's going to have a job to get past Eddie Irvine. You're watching David Coulthard, who at the present moment is 5th in the championship with 12 points. And there is Johnny Herbert in the white Stewart behind the yellow Jordan of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who is in 6th position. So Johnny Herbert is 1 place off a World Championship point at this early point in the race. And he's ahead of Ralf Schumacher, who is 8 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, his brother. And Ralf Schumacher in 8th position. Now, this is the hairpin. They take this at about 55 miles an hour on the apex. They approach it at 180. And from here, it's accelerating away round that kink into the fastest part of the course, building up to 200 miles an hour, which is what Schumacher is doing now as he wangs on the anchors down into 2nd gear. Now, the race at the present moment in the top 6 is the one that you are looking at. Coulthard against Irvine. Irvine looking in his mirrors.
He's worried, Murray. Don't think he's not. He's got his head in his mirrors all the time. And for sure, Coulthard is going to get him sooner or later. It's only a matter of time.
Where is it most likely to happen, would you guess?
It's going to come off the hairpin for me. He's going to come out the hairpin, accelerate, drag down on Irvine, and slipstream, pass him into that chicane. He's going to start his lap clean, and he's going to be after his teammate Häkkinen.
Now, Mark, Schumacher is staying ahead of Häkkinen. Yes, Irvine is staying ahead of Coulthard, but with not as much success. Is this a reflection on the car or the driver?
No, I think it's just a, you know, the pace of what they're running at the present time. Obviously, Coulthard is fighting now with Irvine. They're going to have their own battle. The 2 guys in front are actually doing pretty much similar lap times. I'm talking a 22.628 and a 22.646. you know, thousandths of a second difference. So hopefully that gap will remain the same or even close up for us.
Well, there's the first four. Ferrari, McLaren and Coulthard trying to dive up the inside. Not here, said Eddie Irvine, and not anywhere if I've got anything to do with it. But David Coulthard being very aggressive because he realises all the time that he's in danger of losing touch with the man he wants to get past most of all, which is Mika Häkkinen, his teammate, and then Michael Schumacher. There's Fisichella, Frentzen, Johnny Herbert still up there in 6th position in the Stewart. So the Stewart reliable, the Stewart fast, Johnny Herbert is on it. And take a good look when you can, when we're getting close-ups, at the front wing of this Ferrari. They have got the most enormous brake ducts on them to feed as much air as possible through to the brakes. They've got a new front wing there with those ducts on it, and they're going to need them. We're on lap 11 now in this 69-lap race. The earliest pit stops I'm expecting, I'm ignoring the possibility, and there is a remote possibility, that we might have some people on a 3-stop strategy. The fastest strategy is 2 stops, and I'm expecting them to come in round about lap 23. The earliest stop we had last year, when most people were doing 2-stop strategies, was lap 21. It's very difficult these days because you can have a 1-stop strategy where they'll come in early or come in late.
Yeah, I think what's going to be interesting for here is, again, we're going to talk about brakes. Some of these guys may be running on full tanks, and they may have a bigger problem with the brakes, more weight to stop. That's going to have a higher wear rate on the brakes. Some of the others may go with half tanks. It's going to be easier on the brakes, and they're going to take that throughout the whole distance of the race.
Well, one thing for sure is that the Ferrari promise, you will remember, in Spain 2 weeks ago. Here's a replay coming up. Let's see what it is. It's Takagi in the arrows going off, and he's going off round about turn 7. A lot of people have been running their left side wheels, their near side wheels, onto the grass there in practice and in qualifying. Some of them going off, most of them staying on. But I was saying the strategy is going to be all important here. It's our belief that the 4 cars in the lead are both on a 2-stop strategy, and it's very, very close indeed. Michael Schumacher has just put up the fastest sector of the race so far. Look at him now, he's easing away from Mika Häkkinen. The gap is nearly 2 seconds now. He's doing it at about the rate of about 0.2 of a second a lap. Not very much, 0.2 of a second. Look at it on your watch. Well, most watches only do 1 second. But if you could just keep on doing that, 0.2 of a second multiplied by 69 would be a very nice gap at the end of the race. And I was saying that Ferrari said in Spain, where they had a difficult time against the McLarens of Häkkinen and David Coulthard there, who was second. Häkkinen won the race, and the Ferraris were 3rd and 4th. But they said this is our worst circuit of the year, Barcelona. Next one in Canada, we are expecting to do a lot better, partly because the characteristics of the car will suit the course better, partly because we've got some new stuff coming. And it looks Ferrari really are getting into the ascendancy.
Yeah, it's incredible. I just turned up after a couple of years away, and the Ferrari team and McLaren in particular, they've just upped the ante. The commitment, the professionalism, it's all gone up, and the pressure on these guys is immense.
Now this is Olivier Panis, pursued in 15th position by Marc Genet and Zanardi. Well, Zanardi in the Williams has got ahead of the Minardi, and so he should. He's in 17th place, Zanardi. Barrichello is still running. We haven't seen him on the screens, but he's still running. He's 1 lap down in the second Stewart, 18th, and therefore last, of course. Down the fast straight to the right, left at the end of the circuit, Michael Schumacher. Look how close he goes to that wall. And look now, the gap, I'll give you the gap between Coulthard and Schumacher on the previous lap. It was 6.4 seconds. But Mika Häkkinen is speeding up. He's just done the fastest lap of the race. Michael Schumacher has increased his lead over Coulthard in 4th place by just a mere 1/10 of a second. And Mika Häkkinen has just gone round in 1:21.9. And the lap record here is Michael Schumacher 1:19.4. There is Johnny Herbert trying to chase down Heinz-Harald Frentzen, but there's quite a gap now. There's Marc Genet, there is it's Badeur, and there is Tora Takagi. And they are 13th and 14th. Well, now the gap between the top man, Michael Schumacher, and Marc Genet is some 33 seconds on lap 14 out of 69. Here is the leader. Well, Ferrari looking very good indeed here, but Mika Häkkinen is keeping him in sight. Do you think that we're likely to get a surprise on strategy and that somebody in these four is on a one-stop strategy? I wouldn't have thought so.
Well, I wouldn't have thought so, but you never know. And of course, with the way that the beginning of the race went with those yellows and the safety car deployed, people may think differently now. I mean, the race is underway. They can change their strategy as the race is going on. Häkkinen at this point needs to really start pushing. Schumacher's responded with another fastest lap, but Häkkinen needs to be on the back end of him. He needs to give him hassle. He needs to make a mistake, which is difficult. The German never does, but he's got to push.
Well, you're seeing the two top men in the championship these days. Michael Schumacher's leading it with 30 points to Häkkinen's 24 points. And it's a good time, I think, lap 15 out of 69 for us to take a break. Lap 17, you're looking at Rubens Barrichello, who's 18th and very much last in the Stewart. But look at this replay. Damon Hill comes out of turn 13, loses the Jordan, slams into the wall, breaks the rear suspension, and has retired from the Canadian Grand Prix. And that is Damon's 4th retirement from 6 races. It's not at all a good season for the man who won here in Canada in 1996, his World Championship year. And into the pit lane comes Rubens Barrichello. See the something flapping on the left pod of the car.
Straight into the garage of that, Murray. They had some damage from the first corner incident, and probably they've got radiator trouble. The temperature's probably gone up on the engine. They've got to bring it in. It's not going to last.
Yes, I was saying earlier on, if you remember, that these new engines run hot enough anyway with their small radiators, and that's David Coulthard still pushing Eddie Irvine very hard indeed, and the positions on lap 18 with nobody having yet made a routine pit stop. Claudio Berro, the public relations man at Ferrari, working away in the garage. The order, Michael Schumacher leading Mika Häkkinen now. In spite of the fact that the safety car has been out twice, Michael Schumacher has built up a lead of 3.3 seconds over Mika Häkkinen, but you can see the gap very clearly between the second Ferrari of Eddie Irvine, there it is, and the second McLaren of David Coulthard, there it is. The gap between them is less than a second, although David Coulthard is now nearly 10 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. Fisichella still fifth, Heinz-Harald Frentzen still sixth, pursued by Johnny Herbert, 1 second behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen's Jordan. Ralf Schumacher is 8th, Pedro Diniz is 9th, Jacques Villeneuve has fought his way up from 16th to 10th. Well, when I say fought his way up, a lot of that will have been helped by the retirements. And now Damon Hill is out of the race, Barrichello still running, and Zonta, Wurz, Alesi and Trulli, but news from James Allen in the pits.
Well, Murray, Damon Hill may have had the wet fire suit, but the mechanics down here in the pit lane are worried about the temperatures too, and quite a lot of them have got ice packs. They've stuffed them down the back of their overalls to keep them nice and cool, but I think the temperatures are also affecting the lap times. It's very difficult at the moment to tell whether these guys are going to stop once or twice. I expect that Schumacher started with about 80 or 90 kilos of fuel and an open mind as to whether he'd come in as late as lap 30 or as late as lap 36. And we'll wait and see around about that time exactly what Ferrari have got in mind. But he and Häkkinen definitely on the same pace.
Thanks for that, James. We're looking at Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Jordan in 6th position. The only Jordan runner left after the retirement of Damon Hill. And Johnny Herbert in 7th place. Now, Herbert last scored a point in the Formula One Championship for Sauber last year. He's only had one finish this year, and that was 10th position in the San Marino Grand Prix. So he will be really sweating on a finish here, and preferably, obviously, a finish in the points. There's no reason why he shouldn't be able to do it at the present moment. That car is very fast, under the direction of Gary Anderson, who is the new technical director at the Stewart team. Everything is going extremely well. The car handles well, and I would be surprised if all the 6 people in front of him finish this race.
I'd be very surprised, but I'd be happy to see Johnny finish in the points. He certainly could do with the lift, and it would be great. I think a little late birthday present for Jackie Stewart and for the full team.
Yes, Jackie Stewart's birthday the other day, and a very nice birthday for the Ford Motor Company, a large bundle of dollars for the team. And very well deserved too. No one's done more for Formula One in particular, and motor racing in general, than James Young Stewart. 3 times a world champion, the man who has made Formula One the touch wood, the comparatively safe sport that it is today, because it was Jackie's selfless insistence on safety being improved which resulted in the sort of cars that are being raced today, the Armco that you can see in the background, the medical facilities that are at every circuit. And Jacques Villeneuve is on a bit of a charge. There he is. He's in 10th position, pursuing Pedro Diniz. There is the Sauber of the Brazilian, and he's closing down on 9th place, he being Jacques Villeneuve, as they come down towards turn 10 for the 20th time in this 69-lap race. And Michael Schumacher comes through to complete his 20th lap. The gap was 3.2 seconds. Mika Häkkinen goes across the line. It's 2.8 seconds, because Häkkinen has just done the fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 21.48, and that compares with last year, just about 2 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher's fastest lap last year.
I don't think we're going to see the lap times for lap records on this event, Murray, purely because of the heat, and also we've got the extra groove in those front tyres, which seems to have dropped off some of the grip for these guys. But interestingly enough, those 2 guys at the front, similar pace. The problem what I can see at the moment is that Coulthard has actually dropped off of Irvine's pace by about 4 tenths, and that could be down to just working his front tyres a little bit too hard, trying to get by him in those early stages.
Mark, when you were talking to your mates in the pit lane, were they moaning about the fact that these 1999 narrower cars on the 4-groove tyres are more difficult to drive?
In a word, yes. I spoke to a lot of the guys down there, and you know, not one of them had a good thing to say about the way these cars are balancing out and what they're like to drive. They all said they're very nervous, they're twitchy, and the fun element is going out of it, and most of all, they just need a bit more of a stable car with a bit of grip to go racing with.
Well, there's Häkkinen. He's continuing to charge, and so is Eddie Irvine now. Irvine in the background is actually going faster than Mika Häkkinen in terms of lap time. Yet another quick lap from the Finn, but Michael Schumacher is totally in charge of this race. He knows the situation. He will be able, well, I was going to say he'll be able to see Häkkinen in his mirrors at some point. Do you think he will? Is Häkkinen close enough?
I think Häkkinen's going to now make a big effort, a big push. We're going to come into that area now when there could be the first pit stops coming up the next few laps, and he needs to put that gap down to at least a second or so, and that could be made up in a pit stop.
But in order to get it down to a second or so, he's got to go mighty quick. The gap is 2.7 seconds, although Häkkinen that you're looking at now, the Finn who won in Brazil and won in Spain. Michael Schumacher's won 2 races too, and Eddie Irvine, of course, won the Australian Grand Prix. Mika Häkkinen is making that charge, as you see Irvine there, Coulthard there, so it's still Ferrari McLaren. It's still Fisichella. There is the blue Benetton in 5th position. You can see the gap between the Benetton and Heinz-Harald Frentzen's Jordan. And you didn't see Johnny Herbert, but Johnny Herbert is now starting to close on Heinz-Harald Frentzen. He's got the gap down to 1.1 seconds. Mika Häkkinen's just done a 1:21.272, which is the fastest lap of the race. Now, we're on lap 23 at the present moment. The earliest stop last year was made on lap 21. A 2-stop strategy, if you do it mathematically, is the first stop on lap 23 and the second stop on lap 46. So we can expect to see them start coming in at any time now. Häkkinen. So there is Häkkinen, and Louise Goodman has Damon Hill with her.
Damon, that looked to us like a little slip that cost you dear. Was that the case?
Well, it was an accident. I crashed the car. Basically, I lost control of the vehicle and hit the wall. There's nothing more to it than that, really.
What is the track like? Is it very slippery in this heat?
Yeah, it's been slippery all... There's not the heat that's doing it, it's just the track is slippery. There's not very much grip on the cars, but I mean, you know, I crashed and that's my mistake.
Thanks, Damon. Back to you, Murray.
Well, there's nothing like a straightforward answer, is there, Murray?
No, there isn't. Damon being a bit terse there, understandably, because again, it's not right to laugh. He's under considerable pressure, and the fact is he made a mistake. He's out of the race, and the fact is that again his teammate Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who was looked on as very much the number 2 when he joined the Jordan team, is ahead of Damon. And as you see, Michael Schumacher is responding to Mika Häkkinen's attack with the first lap in under 1 minute 21 seconds, 1 minute 20.920. And that is getting mighty close to last year's fastest lap. As into the pits, I suspect for the first routine pit stop comes Pedro de la Rosa. We're with the arrows, people. A lovely shot this is. You can see how they get those wheel guns onto the nuts. The lollipop man lifts the lollipop, and Pedro de la Rosa fails to leave because there's a problem on the right rear.
No, it looks like there's a gearbox problem, Murray. Looks like they can't get the gear actually selected, so they're trying to just push the car. They turned it off, in fact.
Well, it hasn't exactly ruined De La Rosa's race because he was last anyway, a lap behind. But hopefully he'll come out again because the Spaniard is very good. He's won championships at every discipline up to Formula One. He can be regarded as a coming man, and hopefully he'll come out on the track again, if for no other reason than to get some more racing mileage. The more experience you can get, the better a driver you will be. And in comes Johnny Herbert. Now, this is the first of the top 10 to come in for a pit stop. Johnny Herbert then in the Stewart. Out comes the fuel, and 9.5 seconds for Herbert. Now, has he lost a place? Well, yes, he has. He's dropped down to 10th position because Villeneuve has gone past him, Deniz has gone past him, Ralf Schumacher has gone past him, but of course they have not made stops. Herbert has, so hopefully if he's timed it right, he might even get ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who Herbert was pretty close to. We're on lap 25 now out of 69. The gap between Schumacher and Häkkinen that you see now as Schumacher turns in for turn 12 and Häkkinen follows him is 3.2 seconds. And I think Häkkinen's charge isn't working.
I think Häkkinen's going to be a little bit deflated, Murray, because, you know, he was pushing like mad, pushing in those fastest laps, and Michael Schumacher just comes back and whacks one in there. And when you see that plus and minus go up on your board, it deflates you. When you're giving it your best and you see there's no reward.
Well, the reward for Michael Schumacher is yet another fastest lap. Heinz-Harald Frentzen we're riding with now, and he is in 6th position in the Jordan. This is turn 1. Now that very tight turn 2, which is first or second gear?
Second gear, Murray, and they just accelerate hard out of that corner. Second, third, fourth gear. And this is a blind turn in this point here, and they just curb hop. Watch these cars just climb the curves. They want to keep away from that one because it's a really bad curve. If you touch that barrier, you're going to be in a big mess.
Building up to 180 miles an hour as he approaches turn 8, and Eddie Irvine and Michael Schumacher in the Ferraris seem to have control of the two McLarens, because Irvine is holding on to his 3rd position ahead of David Coulthard. The gap between the two of them is 2.5 seconds, and Schumacher, it's the question of when is the Ferrari coming in. It's lap 26 now that he is on. It's lap 27 that he's on now as Häkkinen goes through, and there's the whole length of the pit straight between Häkkinen in 2nd place, Eddie Irvine in 3rd position. The Finn turns into turn 1. He sees himself on the big screen, and sometimes, I know in the past, drivers have seen the big screen and worked out exactly where they were in relation to the opposition.
Well, they're a better guy than what I am, I know that. I didn't have any time to look at big screens.
You can see it's a half steering wheel that they have. It's none of the drivers these days have a complete 360-degree steering wheel, and those wheels cost a minimum, an absolute minimum of £20,000 just for the steering wheel, because so much information and control goes through the steering wheel. They have a digital readout of their lap times. They can even control their drinks from the steering wheel. And the gear changing is operated by a couple of little paddles underneath the steering wheel. There's no gear lever as such on the modern Formula 1 car. And Michael Schumacher now on his 27th lap is increasing his lead over Häkkinen with that searing 3 laps that he put in, all of them at the fastest speed. And so Schumacher on his way. More news from James Allen.
Well, I'm in the Ferrari garage, Murray, looking around for signs of activity, for signs of those first pit stops. I've had a hunch that this was a one-stop race. I'm still feeling it might be. There's no real sign of the McLaren mechanics or the Ferrari mechanics getting ready to go. But, of course, traditionally, this is a one-stop race, and what you want to do is go as long as you possibly can on the first run, because you lose track position when you make your stop. No question in my mind that Schumacher, Häkkinen, Irvine and Coulthard are all on the same strategy, but I do think that Michael's got less fuel on board than the McLarens, and that possibly accounts for some of the reason why he's been able to pull away. He may make the first stop. It's pure speculation, but at the moment, I think if he does do that, he'll be taking on about 78 kilos of fuel and going through to the finish.
Well, it's very reasonable speculation, James, because we could have a one-stop as late as lap 44. We did have last year, which is roughly 2/3 of the race distance. Start on a heavy fuel load, run it down, and then you take on a fairly small fuel load so that the car is nice and light.
I think McLaren may well be doing that with the fuel load. They may be running a little bit heavier load, and they're going to go the distance a bit further into the race and carry it. And, you know, at this point in time, it looks very good for McLaren. They've got 2 cars running up there. The reliability looks strong. Anything can go wrong also in the pit stops. That's the other thing to consider. The more pit stops you have, the more risk there is.
Well, looking good for McLaren, looking better for Ferrari, surely first and third.
It does look a little bit better for them at this point, but you know, I'd like to see a McLaren win this race if possible, just to make a bit more of a fight out of this championship. But you know, first of all, they're going to have to beat Schumacher, then they're going to beat Ferrari, and that is a hard challenge.
And Fisichella, meantime, that you are watching, pursued by Heinz-Harald Frentzen, is hanging in there. He's 26 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. He's in 5th position. There is Heinz-Harald Frentzen. And now there's a colossal gap between Frentzen, who's the last man in the points, in 6th position, and Ralf Schumacher. We're riding with Frentzen now. Make the most of this. I think this is the only on-board camera that we've got. And he's in that section of bends between turn 5 and turn 10, which is tremendously spectacular. Mark, talk us through it.
Well, just watch the hands, Murray. Just watch Frentzen now. We've lost it already. But just think about that. There's 13 turns on this track. Every lap they're doing that, feeding back through the wheels, an immense amount of load through there. You think of the physical effort in these heat and these conditions. It draws about 4 or 5 pounds of weight off of these guys when they finish a race.
Frentzen goes through the picture, and as we look down on the track, you can see Zanardi there chasing, would you believe, Luca Badoer. Mark, I'm going to pick my words very carefully here. Alex Zanardi was seen as the great white hope coming from Champ Car Racing, where he's the double champion in America and a very, very worthy one, to Formula One, as Jacques Villeneuve did. And Villeneuve jolly nearly won the championship in '96, did win it in 1997, but we'll pursue that later, because now we're going for a break. So lap 32. So lap 32 in Canada, and Michael Schumacher turns in and loses it. Michael Schumacher slams into the wall and is out of the Canadian Grand Prix. He lost it there, just as his brother Ralph lost it in the Williams in practice, and Jacques Villeneuve lost the Williams the year before last. It's a very easy thing to do, but you certainly don't expect Michael Schumacher to do it. Here's a replay. He's marked.
Just turned in there, Murray, to that last chicane, got on the inside curve and bounced across the secondary curve. Look, watch the car, goes over the curb and gets upset, loses grip, the rear end's out. He's trying to correct it, but there's no way, there's no grip. he's off at the wrong angle, hits the wall, and what an unusual mistake for him. He never makes those mistakes.
So now it's all down to Eddie Irvine, who is second in this race, pursuing Mika Häkkinen. The gap between them is 7.1 seconds. Michael Schumacher out of the race, only one Ferrari left. This is it, Eddie Irvine. We know he's monumentally quick these days. This is his opportunity. He won in Australia, and if he can chase down Mika Häkkinen, he will be doing very well indeed. David Coulthard, meantime, is coming up to the Minardi of Marc Genet to lap him. Now, I suspect, Mark, I don't know, obviously, but I suspect that Michael Schumacher may just have lost his rhythm because he was coming up through the field to lap people. He was taken Olivier.
It's just a bit of concentration there, I think. It's just concentration just lost as he's coming into that chicane, and it is obviously costly. I mean, that's lost him the race in the biggest possible way.
Well, that is the first time that Michael Schumacher has failed to finish a race in 1999. We expect him perhaps to go out for mechanical reasons, but we've started to look at Michael Schumacher as being a chap who doesn't make mistakes. There was a big one there. It's cost him 10 World Championship points, and if Mika Häkkinen keeps going and wins this race, he would be ahead of Michael Schumacher in the World Championship by 4 points. But there's a long way to go yet. And Eddie Irvine might yet, because Eddie Irvine is definitely closing the gap on Häkkinen. It was 7.1 seconds on the previous lap. It's 6.9 seconds on this lap. And he's easing away. No, David Coulthard is increasing speed as well. There is the McLaren. The order now on lap 34 with Michael Schumacher very much out of the race is Mika Häkkinen leading. Eddie Irvine is second. There is Ralf Schumacher. That's where Mika Häkkinen went off yesterday, and it's a very easy place to do that. And we're watching David Coulthard in third position. Now he's trying to close on Eddie Irvine as Irvine is trying to close on Mika Häkkinen. Fisichella goes up to fourth place. Frentzen goes up to fifth place. Ralf Schumacher, unless that slide affected him, is now in sixth position ahead of Pedro Diniz. There are now only 14 cars left in this race. You may remember I said earlier on, and we're on lap 34 out of 69, a long way to go, that I would be surprised if 11 out of the 22 finished. Well, there's just 4 cars over the 11 running yet, and we're not even at half distance. As Mika Häkkinen goes through. Now, he is coming up to the battle between Takagi and Zanardi and Badoa for 10th, 11th, 12th place. And that is Ralf Schumacher. That's a replay of the Williams running off.
It's exactly the same place, Murray, where Alessandro Zanardi went off earlier in the race there at the hairpin. I don't know whether the Williams got a little bit of a braking issue.
Brakes, yeah. We've been talking a lot about brakes. We've been talking a lot about heat. Just think of the amount of heat that must have been put into those brakes as Zanardi, who is in 11th position, heads the race leader, Mika Häkkinen, who is now about to lap the Italian in the Williams. Yeah, Alex moves over. No point in trying to resist Mika Häkkinen. He saw him coming up in his mirrors.
Yeah, I wish you'd done that for me a couple of years ago. There you go.
When you were both in champ cars. Yeah. So, Mika Häkkinen has now lapped Marc Genet. He's lapped Olivier Panis, who I think may have possibly contributed to Michael Schumacher's downfall, simply because Schumacher, trying to scramble past him, left his braking a bit late. And Eddie Irvine dives through. You can see he's on a charge. And it's Irvine 6.9 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen. The difference in lap time between Irvine and Häkkinen on the previous lap was just 2/100ths of a second. So Eddie is not exactly gaining on him hand over fist. And it's David Coulthard in the background. That is Olivier Panis. And I was saying that Häkkinen has lapped everybody now up to Luca Badoa, who is in 10th place. You can see that, Damon Hill's Jordan is parked on the main straight, just a bit further up it than Zonta's car was when the Brazilian went into the chicane. There's no need to remove Damon's car. It's well off the racing line, well off the track, and it's not a hazard the way Zonta's BAR was. Now, what about Jacques Villeneuve talking about BAR? Well, Jacques has made his way by virtue of his speed and retirements up to 8th position from 16th on the grid. He's yet to win a Canadian Grand Prix. I don't think he's going to win this one. James Allen in the pits. What's the news?
Well,
there's Villeneuve out. Sorry to interrupt you, James. Jacques Villeneuve, I was talking about, has done exactly the same thing that Michael Schumacher did. Are they going to bring the safety car out? Because he, like Zonta, is even more on the line. The BARs have gone out at exactly the same place, and this is jinx part of the circuit for Villeneuve, because it's where he went out exactly the same place 2 years ago in the Williams. Yeah. He's done it wrong again. This
chicane is just taking a lot of victims in this race, Murray, and it's just a case of getting across those curves. It just upsets the balance of these cars. They're very light and grip as it is, and it just kicks them off into the wall. We can watch it now. Look, he's out already on the dirty. Oh, he's way out on the racetrack there. Should never have been there, but I guess it was caused by going across those curves. Yeah, Villeneuve charging up behind Zanardi. Takes a very, very heavy hit there. But as you can see, he was perfectly all right. Only his dignity has been hurt. And into the pits comes Giancarlo Fisichella from 4th position. And there in the pits is Frentzen, who was 5th. So Fisichella and Frentzen have come in together. That's on lap 37 out of 69. That's Badeur and Eddie Irvine in the pack of 4 cars there, and the gap between Häkkinen and Irvine, and Häkkinen's got through that traffic. We're with Pedro Diniz at the present moment, who is in 6th position, or was in 6th position in the points. What's interesting, Murray, is the safety car has been deployed, and most of these guys have actually come into the pit lane and doing all the pit stops now. So we'll just have to have a look on that and see what it is for a regulation.
Yes, I think that's perfectly permissible. And here is Mika Häkkinen. Now, Mika Häkkinen, race leader, making his pit stop. Now, I'm watching to see whether Eddie Irvine goes through. He should do. It should be the lead for the Ferrari. Very close. There goes Mika Häkkinen out of the pit lane. And the Ferrari mechanics have now got Eddie Irvine in. So Irvine was coming in. James.
Yeah, 7/10 of a second he had over Coulthard, so it's not a great deal. Eddie Irvine is really going to struggle, I think, to keep Coulthard behind him after this. The regulations, it's no problem to, of course, to refuel. Michael Schumacher did it last year under the safety car, if you recall, on lap 20 and went on to win the race. But I must just tell you guys, the most extraordinary thing about the reaction here at Ferrari to Schumacher's accident was the lack of reaction. They were completely impassive. I think the journalists down here were more up in arms and horrified than anybody in the Ferrari team. Everybody's allowed one catastrophic mistake in a season. Michael Schumacher just had his.
He certainly did. And now the McLaren of David Coulthard, who is in 2nd position, is up behind Tora Takagi's Arrows in 10th place as they break for the hairpin, and Takagi should move over. Now this is delaying Coulthard. You'll remember that Eddie Irvine's been in, and any delay from David Coulthard is going to mar his chances of getting out and of the pits in front of Eddie Irvine when he comes in. So Häkkinen has stopped, Coulthard has not stopped. In comes Zanardi, the safety car there, and Fisichella has been into the pits. So everybody now down to, in fact, the whole of the field that is still running, 13 out of the 22, and into the pits comes David Coulthard. Now, everybody has been in now that Coulthard has made his pit stop, who is on the track. Bit of a delay getting that fuel nozzle out of the tank. Maybe that was because, as I said earlier on, there was and there is Irvine. It's mighty close. Irvine goes through and retains his position ahead of David Coulthard with the safety car out. Now we're on lap 39 in this 69-lap Canadian Grand Prix. Häkkinen, Badeur, Panis, Irvine, Coulthard. So Häkkinen will have a clear track when the safety car comes in. Eddie Irvine and David Coulthard will not, because they will be trying to get past the battle for 11th place between Luca Badeur's Minardi and Olivier Panis's Prost. strange, Mark, to be talking about the Minardis having battles with people like Zanardi in the Williams and Panis in the Prost, because the Williams and the Prost are thought to be much quicker. This is a replay of Michael Schumacher slamming into that turn 13 wall, which must have given Olivier Panis a bit of a wake-up call. Yeah,
Olivier, they just sort of got on the brakes and just puffed them and just got underneath him. But again, as we saw and as we said earlier, just a case of getting across those curves, just unsettling these cars and throwing them off the road very easily. I think Villeneuve actually may have a little bit of a problem there when he got out the car with his leg. He took a big impact and it was very frontal, so I think that may be hurting him.
Yes, I noticed he was hopping a bit. Incidentally, on that turn 12, turn 13 chicane, there was concrete at the exit to turn 13 on the inside last year, which was where Michael Schumacher actually went across it inside the markers which designate the corner, when he was having a battle which turned very sour indeed after the race with Damon Hill for position. And Michael Schumacher said that Damon had been extremely dangerous the way he'd weaved in front of him. Damon naturally said he hadn't. But that concrete has been replaced with grass this year. So, safety car out, lap 39. 30 laps still to go, including the one that they are on and the order. And they are tight up behind each other with the safety car going for another lap, and Eddie Irvine weaving to keep the tyres up to temperature. The order is Mika Häkkinen, McLaren leads Eddie Irvine in the sole Ferrari. The second McLaren of David Coulthard is third. Fisichella Benetton is fourth, and Heinz-Harald Frenzen's Jordan is fifth, ahead of Pedro Diniz in the Sauber. Seventh is Ralf Schumacher in the Williams. Eighth is Johnny Herbert, who's actually stopped twice. Takagi is ninth, and Zanardi in the Williams is still running in 10th position, ahead of Badeur, Panis, and that is Jacques Villeneuve. Replay. And you're right, Mark, that would have been a heck of a bump inside the car. What always worries me in that situation, when they go sort of 3/4 in, is that the wishbone will penetrate the tub and hit the driver's leg. Yeah, that's always a worry, but these cars are, as we know, immensely strong, and that was a big impact. That was probably in the relation of about 100 G, and you see his head gets kicked about quite violently there, but I think in all he'll be okay. He's probably a bit bruised and battered. Pedro Diniz in 6th position will be praying just to finish this race, never mind in the points. Now, you saw the car go past the safety car. What is supposed to happen, and it takes quite a long time for it to happen, is that the safety car stays out as long as is necessary to clear the circuit, and then the cars assemble behind it in the race order. So it depends where the safety car picks up the field. He'll let some of them through. So ideally, he's going to be in a position as Erja Häkkinen watches her man, again leading a Grand Prix. The safety car ideally would be in the situation where Häkkinen was leading Irvine, leading Coulthard, with nobody in between them. Well, in comes the safety car, on goes the race. Now, Eddie Irvine must make a charge now to get past Panis in the blue Prost and Badeur in the silver Minardi. It's a golden opportunity for Mika Häkkinen on lap 41 with 20 laps to go. Coulthard challenges. David Coulthard passes Eddie Irvine. No, he doesn't. Out goes Irvine, out goes Coulthard. Oh, my goodness. Irvine rejoins. Now, they both rejoined, but right at the back of the field. Wow, what about that, Mark?
Turn 1, turn 2 this time, and unbelievable. The two of them touched. Coulthard actually went round the long way, round the outside, got down the side of Irvine, but then Irvine just squeezed him a little bit. Coulthard took to the grass and they touched and both slid off, but they're both back on again, and maybe we can see some more action.
Well, we're going to see some real driving now, because Irvine still in second place, down right the back of the field after losing that second place. He's going to be straining every muscle to fight his way through the field. Here is a replay. Watch David Coulthard on the outside of turn 1 and now the inside of turn 2, hitting Eddie Irvine. There'll be contention about whose fault it was.
Well, it was a bit 50-50 in some respects. Coulthard made the move, squeezed Irvine down on the apex of that curving. Irvine took his line and squeezed David a little bit there, and both round they go. It's like the waltz.
Well, I must say that looking down on it from above, it looked to me as though Eddie Irvine had got a full car length ahead of David Coulthard. Here it is.
Just watch it now. He's going the long way around. He just squeezes Irvine slightly. That pushes him wide himself. And then Irvine just stays on line, which he's entitled to do. In DC, has to take to the inside just a little bit too much across the grass. And, of course, there's no grip.
Well, what does all this mean? It means that Häkkinen is leading the race and David Coulthard coming into the pits. Well, this is going to blow it wide open as far as the second McLaren, not the first. Mika Häkkinen is still way out there in front with a clear track being pursued by Fisichella, who is now second. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is up into third. Ralf Schumacher in the Williams is fourth. Herbert is in the points, in the Stewart in sixth position ahead of Pedro Diniz. And at the back of the field, Eddie Irvine and David Coulthard. Even worse for Coulthard because he's now been in for that pit stop. And Mika Häkkinen, look at the gap. Mika Häkkinen out on his own. He's got 28 laps left to do, 27 laps including the one that he's on. And it's a stroll home to victory provided he can keep going. Because Fisichella is lapping 1.4 seconds slower. There's Fisichella in the blue car as Panis has a go at Badoer. There are two battles here. Panis in the blue Prost chasing Badoer with the red wishbone, and behind them the battle between Fisichella and Frentzen for second place. Fisichella in the blue Benetton, Frentzen in the yellow Jordan, and the battle between Badoer and Panis is a lap. It's almost a lap behind Fisichella, paradoxically, although they're ahead of them on the track. They're on very nearly on different laps. So this is the man to watch now is Frentzen.
Frentzen's the man to watch, but also the man to watch is Panis. Let's see whether the guy lets these guys behind just stroll on by. Remember, in a couple of Grand Prix, he's been staved upon by some of the drivers for being a little bit non-courteous, we should say. He hasn't been the best of guys to get by.
And remember, too, that Panis had a very nasty accident here in the Canadian Grand Prix 2 years ago, broke both his legs, and it wasn't until the pins were removed last year that he felt really confident about driving again. So there's a lot of psychological pressure on the Frenchman as well, as Frentzen now can see his opportunity, and Fisichella's got a big problem. He's got to try to get past Panis and Badoer as Panis attacks the Italian in the Minardi, and at the same time resist Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Now what's happening? They're coming now to turn 12 and 13. This is the one where Schumacher went off and Villeneuve went off. Are they all going to make it? And Fisichella comes up alongside Prost. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen goes through. Fabulous.
Well, that's what we said before. Panis is causing a little bit of a trouble here for those guys who are obviously in front of him on the road. And he's now lets Frentzen go by. He's not too happy about letting Fisichella go by.
We're with Frentzen now. What a super bit of driving by the German. The man who is now showing his real potential. When he came into Grand Prix racing from Formula 3000 in Japan as an ex-Mercedes-Benz sports car driver, there were people who said he was faster than Michael Schumacher. Well, he didn't get the chance to prove it in a Sauber. Then he joined the Williams team. He didn't fit in very well there psychologically. They dropped him last year. He's with the Jordan team this year. They love him, he loves them, and it's really paying off. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen's doing a fabulous job.
Fisichella will be furious, and so will Benetton as well, because basically he got held up by the two guys in front having their own race, and they're really like down the order. They shouldn't be mucking around with those guys. There's big money at stake. Frentzen's in there. Jordan have got the position, and I'm sure there'll be trouble about this after.
Well, Luca Badoer has not shone this season, but he's managing to stay ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen at the moment, but not very much longer, I think. There, we're with Frentzen. There is Badoer in front of us, and wham! Straight past. Now, hard on the brakes. Beautiful. It is room to spare where Schumacher went off, where Villeneuve went off. And Fisichella now has got the problem of getting past his countryman, Luca Badoer. And the Italian moves over, lets Fisichella through. He's still ahead of Panis. And it's all mixed up on different laps now. Häkkinen is on lap 45. Panis is nearly 2 laps down now. as this terrific traffic jam with Eddie Irvine coming up behind Pedro Diniz. Irvine is now up into 7th place. I seem to remember reading in the publications what a boring sport Formula One is. Eat your words, my friends. This is magical stuff. Look at it. Luca Badoer, the Italian in the Minardi, is causing a traffic jam as Tanis tries to get past him. And as we watch them now, and Eddie Irvine clawing his way through the field. We're going to leave Montreal for a while, but we'll be back soon. Lap 47, this fantastic battle continues, and Eddie Irvine is scything his way through the field. He's just fought his way past Pedro Diniz. Let's see it happen. On the left is the Sauber. On the right in the Scarlet Ferrari is Eddie Irvine. That is Luca Badoer, who's being lapped by both of them and has been causing a bit of a traffic jam in the Minardi. And you can see now, as Eddie Irvine goes through inside the Sauber, he's now up behind Johnny Herbert. So the race order on lap 47 as Irvine goes off, but he'll recover okay here. Don't think he'll have done any damage.
Well, he wouldn't have done his car any good, but it should be okay. But obviously he's just trying to cut corners to catch up with Johnny Herbert as quick as he can.
Yeah, the race order, lap 48, Häkkinen is now way ahead of Frentzen, who's fought his way up into 2nd place by getting past Fisichella. So it's Häkkinen, Frentzen, Fisichella, Ralf Schumacher, Michael's brother in the Williams is 4th. And here is the battle for 5th position between Johnny Herbert and Eddie Irvine. Herbert looking for points, his first points of the season in the Stewart. His teammate Rubens Barrichello has long since retired from the race after that coming together that he had with Jarno Trulli's car at the very beginning of the Canadian Grand Prix. And here is Mika Häkkinen on his lonely own. I don't suppose for one moment he'll mind being lonely, with a clear track in front of him, a clear track behind him. He's coming through to complete his 48th lap out of 69.
What's interesting, Murray, at the moment, these penalties are being handed out really willy-nilly by the looks of it. Looks like Coulthard's got one, Zanardi has one, and there's at least 2 other guys on the racetrack who are going to be into the pit soon with 10-second penalties.
And that will be for speeding in the pit lane. It's going to alter the complexion of this race, but meantime, again, Mika Häkkinen has not put a wheel wrong. He wasn't able to get past Michael Schumacher, but maybe the speed that Häkkinen was doing was pushing Schumacher so hard that he lost the Ferrari at turn 13 and slammed into the wall. Well, there is Fisichella, or was Fisichella, as Zanardi comes into the pits from 8th position.
He's now doing his 10-second penalty, Murray. We're not sure why that penalty is, but again, another bad luck for him and very costly. His race is really flat, it's over.
Yeah, so Zanardi, David Coulthard's got to come in and take a penalty, and there are 2 others involved as well. Luca Badoer, but I'm quite sure, I wouldn't be at all surprised if that was for getting in the way, and Panis the same. Badoer and Panis coming in, and that will be a 10-second penalty for transgressing the rule about passing more than 3 blue flags.
Yeah, that could be a possibility there, but Häkkinen is still pushing in 21s. He's a couple of attempts faster than Heinz-Harald Frentzen at this point. 16-second advantage for Häkkinen. We just have to make sure that he keeps a nice, gentle pace and doesn't get carried away.
Go, Eddie! People are shouting here, and look at him. He's now up behind Johnny Herbert, and there is Ralf Schumacher coming towards us in 4th position in the Williams. So 4th, Schumacher. 5th, Johnny Herbert. 6th, Eddie Irvine. Pedro Diniz is dropping back in 7th position. He's 2 seconds, there he is in the background, behind Eddie Irvine. And Ralf Schumacher, and Eddie is really going for it.
He went in very deep then into 1. He's trying to make up the advantage under braking. Got to be careful. He nearly locked up and slid into Johnny Herbert there. Just put the pressure on and see whether he makes a mistake.
Well, look at this mature, tremendously fast Eddie Irvine. The winner at Melbourne, the Australian Grand Prix. He was 5th in Brazil. He was 2nd, a magnificent 2nd to Michael Schumacher, as David Coulthard comes in for his 10-second penalty. The mechanics have a look at the car. The lollipop man, Mike Nagin, just holds the lollipop there. David has to contain himself, accelerate away. Now, Coulthard was 21 seconds behind Zanardi when he came in. And it's not just the 10 seconds stationary in the pits, it's the time you also lose for slowing down and then speeding up that penalises you. And so that has destroyed, I think, David Coulthard's chances of finishing in the points, as Eddie Irvine continues to harry Johnny Herbert, the man who incidentally is a past Le Mans winner. BMW won at Le Mans. My colleague Martin Brundle, who so many people had thought would win the race, sadly failed to do so by crashing out. But Eddie Irvine, who is still, as far as I know, the lap record holder at Le Mans, is chasing the previous Le Mans winner, Johnny Herbert, to try and get up to a 2-points position. And Irvine in the Stewart resists him. Now, sorry, Herbert in the Stewart resists him. Johnny Herbert has only had a 10th place this year. His teammate Rubens Barrichello has had 2 points finishes this year, a 3rd and a 5th, and Irvine continuing to shove. And Johnny Herbert quite cool, quite calm, utterly implacable. This is his 135th Grand Prix, as off goes Sandro Zanardi. Did he manage to avoid Luca Badoer? Yes, he did. Oh, Eddie getting it very out of shape.
Eddie's pushing, he's really pushing like mad here. He wants to get on the back of Herbert, get by him, and get after Ralf Schumacher. He wants that podium position, Murray.
What about his tyres? What about his brakes?
Well, you know, at this point in time, they're holding up well. Doesn't seem to be any issues. He's braking as hard as he can. We've seen that with the smoke pouring off his tyres, and he's certainly running as hard as that Ferrari can manage.
Lap 52 out of 69. Ralf Schumacher, there is 4th. Johnny Herbert and Eddie Irvine, 5th and 6th. And Mika Häkkinen is going marginally slower in the lead than Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who is still in 2nd position ahead of Fisichella. But Häkkinen continues to lead by 16 seconds as we get a replay here of Zanardi and Badoer battling for that position. Badoer holding it while Zanardi goes off. Now, I never finished my thought, Mark, which was Zanardi has had an awful lot of car problems, but even allowing for that, am I being unfair if I say he's been disappointing?
Well, I think he's been disappointed in the end result for certain, but you know, I don't feel that we've seen the best of Alessandro Zanardi back in F1 at this point. It's just a case of him getting some grip with the car and getting some laps under his belt. and that really hasn't been the case. He's had a lot of problems, and even today's going to be another bigger one for him.
Lap 52, as you watch David Coulthard trying to fight back, and he's in 8th position now, ahead of Zanardi and behind Deniz. The retirement started with Jarno Trulli and Jorna Lacey right at the start. Alexander Wurz went out, and then Zonta slammed into the turn 13 wall on lap 13. Rubens Barrichello's retired. Damon Hill went out of the race when he hit the wall. Pedro de la Rosa is out. Michael Schumacher hit the wall in the same place. And Louise Goodman has news.
Yes, I'm standing by here with Michael Schumacher, Murray. Michael, we're not used to seeing you make mistakes, but I presume that's what we saw this afternoon.
Yeah, that's true. I seem to make one a year, and I hope that is the last one I make this year. But that was very clearly a mistake by myself. Just lost it and hit the wall. Circumstances are difficult down there, as we've seen many cars got the wall there because there's a lot of dust. Just was trying to build up my lead, which I needed for my pit stop, and everything went well until this moment.
As you say, that chicane's catching a lot of people out this afternoon. What's happening? Is the car getting unbalanced over the curbs?
No, there's a lot of fine dust inside the curb, and as people run wide over the curbs, as you can do when you gain some time, and everybody's doing it, it means that there's a lot of dust next to the line, or sometimes on the line. And I had just before various laps where I almost lost it in that chicane because other people heavily went over it, and I had a lot of dust on my line actually. But there at this moment I just went a bit wide, and after that it was already decided I was going to hit the wall.
Thanks, Michael.
Well, a totally calm, cool, collected and dispassionate Michael Schumacher. And past Johnny Herbert goes Eddie Irvine all over the place. They both go over the apex of turn 13, and Eddie Irvine's gigantic push has succeeded. He is now up into 6th position. Well, to finish my previous thought, a totally calm assessment of the situation, which is no less than you'd expect from Michael Schumacher. Replay. Eddie Irvine courageously dives inside Johnny Herbert. They both go off the track. There won't be a penalty, I think, because I don't think either of them suffered. I may be wrong there. It depends on the judgment of the stewards. And look at the way Irvine had to fight to retain control of that Ferrari.
Yeah, we called it a tank slapper in this business, Murray. Eddie just got underneath him coming into the last chicane there. Took him in real deep, and I think it was best for both of them that they took the wide exit and ran on the grass. Certainly there's going to be some dust on that corner now, that's for sure.
Lap 54, 15 to go, top 6, Mika Häkkinen 15 seconds ahead of Frentzen, who is closing but not all that fast. Fisichella is right behind Frentzen in 3rd place. Ralf Schumacher in the Williams is 4th. Eddie Irvine is now 5th ahead of Johnny Herbert. We're going for a break. Lap 56, and the mercurial Eddie Irvine down there in the scarlet Ferrari has pulled away from the white Stewart of Johnny Herbert and is closing down on the multicoloured Williams of Ralf Schumacher as they come through on their 57th lap. Irvine really flying. He's upholding Ferrari very well indeed. Oh, whoa! After Michael Schumacher hit the wall there, and Eddie Irvine nearly did so. Johnny Herbert, the gap between Irvine and Herbert after only one lap is nearly 1.5 seconds. So Irvine is not only monumentally fit, he's massively quick. The car, he says this Ferrari is the best that he has ever driven, and he's driving it better than he's driven ever before this season. So absolutely superb. Meantime, Häkkinen is still being reeled in by Frentzen with 13 laps to go, and it's happening at the rate of just 9/10 of a second. But I think Häkkinen is controlling things. He's still 12 seconds ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. But Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the German, Eddie Irvine from Ireland are the men of the race at the present moment.
Yeah, I think at this point in time, Häkkinen's just got the cruise control set. He knows there's only a few laps running, and he's just going to cruise to the end of this race and take the victory. But definitely the man on the move, Murray, is Eddie Irvine. That guy is pushing low 21s in lap after lap, and he's catching Ralf Schumacher at over a second a lap.
Yeah, it's stirring stuff. And here we are again. And this is where Irvine closed right on and took Johnny Herbert. Not this time, he's not close enough to Ralf Schumacher in the Williams. But Ralf is going to lose, looking in his mirrors as he goes down the straight. He's on 3 points at the present moment. Is he going to be there very much longer? 3 points for 4th position, 2 points for 5th position, 1 point for 6th place. And they are battling for 4th and 5th. They being Ralf Schumacher, Williams, Eddie Irvine, Ferrari, and all credit to Ralf Schumacher. He's proved himself to be a chip off the old block. He's had a 3rd place in Australia, and he's had 2 other points positions this year in a Williams which is by far a long way from being the best they've ever produced, and has also got the Supertech engine, which is a customer engine, in comparison with the very, very powerful, some 800 horsepower Ferrari V10 engine of Eddie Irvine's car. So Schumacher is driving an absolute storm of a race.
He's very mature. He's come on leaps and bounds since last season. But watch the Williams team, Murray. I think those guys are going to lift up the pressure a little bit. They're going to get some performance. They're going a lot of testing in the next couple of weeks, and all the Williams personnel are pumped up about it.
Irvine going for it. Dodges out from behind Schumacher's rear wing. Is this where the superior power pays off? Yes, it does. On the approach to where Eddie Irvine moved up ahead of Johnny Herbert, and Irvine is now up into 4th position. Now the gap between him and Fisichella is some 12 seconds, and even the way Irvine is flying, actually his last lap was marginally slower than Fisichella's. So Fisichella is looking extremely good for another podium, as we see a replay here in Canada of Eddie Irvine taking Ralf Schumacher. And if Fisichella gets that 3rd place podium following his 2nd place here last year, it will be a rich and well-deserved reward for the Benetton team. Another replay. You see a masterly passing move.
Yeah, masterly passing move. He just got underneath the rear wing of Schumacher, went the long way around. Had it all to do when he got here because he needed to gather it up slightly, took a bit of speed in. His lap time will be a little bit slower for that lap because of that traffic there with Ralf Schumacher. He had to make the move, but watch the guy again now. He's going to start to put the pressure on, and the lap time's going to drop, and he's going to be after Fisichella.
Well, we were all talking about the future of Eddie Irvine before the race began, and there's a lot of speculation, but Ferrari, in my opinion, and it's none of my business admittedly, would be very unwise to let Eddie Irvine go. He's a supremely good driver. He reckons, although some of his remarks were misquoted, that he's as good as Häkkinen, who we're looking at now and is leading the Canadian Grand Prix, and David Coulthard, who is down in 8th position. So at the present moment, it looks as though only one of the McLarens, and we're on lap 60 out of 69, is going to finish in the points. And yet again, it will be Mika Häkkinen. And just as Frentzen has been going better than Hill in the Jordan team, just as Barrichello up to this race has been going better than Herbert in the Stewart team, so Fisichella has been going better than his teammate Alexander Wurz. And you can see now Heinz-Harald Frentzen has got Fisichella, who's on a charge, and Eddie Irvine is going faster than ever. We've got a tremendous battle developing for second, third and fourth, because there's Fisichella, and ahead of Fisichella in the yellow Jordan is Heinz-Harald Frentzen looking for another podium, and about 11 seconds behind them is Eddie Irvine, who, having got clear of Johnny Herbert and Ralf Schumacher, is on a terrific charge. He's just done the fastest first sector. He's gone faster than he's ever been in the second sector, and I'm going to be interested to see how it compares with the fastest lap of the race, which is Michael Schumacher, 1:20, just a minute, 1:20.7, in comparison with last year's fastest lap, 1:19.4 by Michael Schumacher. And look at Frentzen. Oh, there is Frentzen. Irvine's done another fastest lap. He's in fourth position. He's got the gap down to under 11 seconds. Herbert and Deniz now are fighting for sixth position. So Häkkinen is out on his own. Frentzen has got Fisichella, who is third, right behind him. Eddie Irvine is catching Fisichella and Frentzen. Ralf Schumacher and Johnny Herbert are starting a battle with Pedro Deniz for fifth, sixth and seventh position. 11 competitors left out of the 22 who started. Good stuff. Time for a break. It is the 63rd lap out of 69 at the Canadian Grand Prix, and Mika Häkkinen is stroking the McLaren home to a seemingly certain victory, which would be his third of the year and would put him back, it would put him into the lead of the World Championship. Not back into the lead of the World Championship, he's never been in it before this year. Eddie Irvine started off in the lead of the championship with his victory in Australia. He retained it in Brazil. Michael Schumacher took it over in Imola and retained it at Monaco, and then again in Spain. But now, if Mika Häkkinen gets those 10 World Championship points to Michael Schumacher's none, it would mean that the Finn would go ahead of the German in the World Championship. But it's going to be a very different situation in the Constructors' Championship, because Ferrari would still be holding their lead. And Frentzen now is in the yellow Jordan in second position, has got Fisichella right up behind him as they both come through to take Luca Badoer, who's already taken a 10-second penalty for not moving over fast enough. You saw the blue flags waving at him there. He got out of the way this time, and he's let Frentzen through second. He's let Fisichella through third, and they are some 13 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen, the seemingly unbeatable race leader, as we ride with Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Yeah, just see Frentzen accelerate away from that hairpin there, just changing up for the gears. Hear the engine screaming, well over 15,000 RPM, Murray, as they travel down into that chicane, which has caused so many people problems today.
Well, the man from Mönchengladbach who learned to drive on the family hearse, his father is an undertaker, and he's made a lot of progress since then because he's a mighty quick driver. And Heinz-Harald Frentzen's just got one race victory behind him. He's finished second 3 times before, and I think he's going to finish second this time. He's on his 65th lap now, and the lap times between him and Fisichella in the blue car are identical. It's a rich reward, I was saying earlier on, for Benetton if Fisichella finishes where he is now, because they've done an awful lot of work on the car, which they had handling problems with earlier on in the season, and it would seem that they've got things under control. And Fisichella has got dominance over Alexander Wurz in the Benetton team, and he's closing up. He's easing up on Heinz-Harald Frentzen, but as I've said many times in the past, catching up is one thing, getting past is another.
Yeah, well, we've seen that many times today, Murray, but one thing for me what's significant here is the fact that Mika Häkkinen has only collected 2 points from 7 starts at this event in Montreal. So psychologically, he's going to walk away from here feeling very good about today.
Yes, it's the same here as it was in Monaco, because for years Monaco was a jinx circuit for Mika, and then he brilliantly won there last year, and it looks as though the same thing is going to happen again here. Eddie Irvine now is only 6.5 seconds behind the battle for second place between Frentzen and Fisichella, but the leaders are now on their 66th lap, and well as Irvine is driving, and he's driving superbly, he's going to have a problem. But look, he's close up. Is that Fisichella in front of him as they come? And off goes Frentzen. Well, right in the closing stages of the Canadian Grand Prix, just as Damon Hill went off, Heinz-Harald Frentzen goes off. Is he all right? He's waving his hand there. And that is Alex Zanardi, the Williams driver, looking pretty unhappy. Now the steering wheel is off. Now, I'm a bit worried about this, because if Frentzen was okay, he would be getting out of the car himself.
Well, not too sure what's going on there, Murray, at this point. We didn't see the accident, and he obviously looked in some sort of pain, and we're coming up now with a replay.
All we see is the end of that accident when he took a very severe hit going backwards.
It looks like turn 3. That looks like that corner there looks just under braking. He's lost it and straight into the barrier. A bit hard, as you say.
Mika Häkkinen goes past him, and this is guaranteed a victory for Mika Häkkinen, because Fisichella, who's now moved up into second place, which is where he finished last year, is some 13 seconds behind him. Eddie Irvine moves up into third place. Out goes the safety car again, so they are not happy about Heinz-Harald Frentzen. And I think we're going to see, for the first time ever, a Grand Prix finish behind the safety car. You've got experience of this in Champ Car racing, Mark. It looks as though, sadly, we're going to see the wrong sort of history made in Formula One, with the yellow flags out and the board there which tells Mika Häkkinen by the letters SC on it that the safety car is out. But just for the record, in this worrying stage of the race on lap 67 out of 69, Häkkinen leads Fisichella. Irvine is in third position. Frentzen is still in the car. His legs trapped.
It could well be. He went into the barrier sideways. There may be an element of suspension punctured through the monocoque. And as we saw, the safety car went out, but the medical car did follow. So something's up.
Yeah, Frentzen is obviously conscious and talking to the marshal. Again, just to complete the record, Ralf Schumacher is 4th, Johnny Herbert is 5th, Pedro Diniz is 6th, David Coulthard is 7th. Mika Häkkinen goes through and is now on his 68th and penultimate lap, closing up on the safety car. And I can't see this race finishing any other way than behind the silver Mercedes-Benz safety car. Not the way Mika Häkkinen would have wanted to win this race. And a rather downbeat finish. Fisichella will be closing on the McLaren. There he is. There is Giancarlo Fisichella, but he'll know the safety car's out, and he's just got to take up station behind Mika Häkkinen. And Eddie Irvine will be the next to come into the picture in the Scarlet Ferrari, because he'll be bearing down on Mika Häkkinen, race leader. Giancarlo Fisichella, 2nd position. Last year's winner here in Canada. Oh, and out goes Heinz-Harald Frentzen. I'm very, very happy to see him walking, albeit supported. And it means to say that his legs are all right. He's obviously very, very with it, and that is an enormous relief. But we're now on lap 68, and you see the first 3 together. If the safety car does pull off, we're going to have a mighty exciting finish to this race, because there's swerving Eddie Irvine. Now, is the safety car coming in? It's going to be an absolutely fantastic last lap if he does, because Häkkinen has got Fisichella behind him. No, the safety car goes on, and they are now on their 69th lap. The full race distance is 69 laps, or they will be in a moment when they cross the line now. There's the safety car, and 1st Häkkinen, 2nd Fisichella, 3rd Irvine. That's Badoa, who has long since been lapped, of course. In fact, he's been lapped twice, and he's down in 10th position. And we're on lap 69, and we are indeed seeing Formula One Grand Prix history made. The prospect as Heinz-Harald Frentzen's very, very broken Jordan is removed from the field of a Grand Prix, finishing behind the safety car, which is, frankly, as it should be.
Well, hopefully everything is all right with Frentzen, but it seems that there's information come across from the pit, Murray, that there may have been a brake problem there with the Jordan, which would explain the speed that he went into that barrier.
So, Mika Häkkinen leading the touring competitors that remain in this race. My forecast was about right, not that I'm particularly proud of it under the circumstances. 10 cars are going to finish this race. Of them, only 7 will be having completed the full race distance. With a victory, the 3rd of the season for Mika Häkkinen, to put him into the lead in the World Championship. Giancarlo Fisichella is going to finish in 2nd place for 6 World Championship points to add to the 7 that he already has. Eddie Irvine, 3rd for Ferrari, yet another podium position, which will reinforce his right to drive for Ferrari again next year, which I believe he very much wants to do. Ralf Schumacher, an excellent 4th after all sorts of problems in practicing and qualifying over the last 2 days. Johnny Herbert, a superb first 2 World Championship points for himself, driving in the Stewart team, and very good news for Stewart, for Ford, with the Ford top brass from Detroit here at Montreal. 6th position will be Pedro Diniz, followed by David Coulthard, out of the points. Only 1 McLaren in the points. Marc Genet 8th, Olivier Panis, and Mika Häkkinen wins in Montreal. The flags wave, he surges across the line, and Fisichella 2nd, Irvine 3rd, Ralf Schumacher 4th, Johnny Herbert 5th, Pedro Diniz another point for Sauber. So McLaren win, Benetton are 2nd, Ferrari are 3rd, Williams are 4th, Stewart are 5th, Sauber are 6th. That's 6 different constructors in the top 6. David Coulthard fails to score for McLaren. Marc Genet is 8th in the Minardi. Olivier Panis is 9th, a lap down, as was Genet. Panis in the Prost. Luca Badoer, the last to finish on the track. 10th position, 2 laps down. I suspect Heinz-Harald Frentzen will be classified 11th home, notwithstanding the fact that he will have been 4 laps adrift. Well, Mark, a sad and literally messy ending to the Canadian Grand Prix, albeit, thank heavens, a happy one, because Heinz-Harald